Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to another video. My name is Smurfy and I just got back from the Axion Modern PPTQ and I just thought I would do a tournament recap with you guys. So the event was a capped at 64 player and I believe it hit the cap. There may be like a no-show or something, but it was about 64 players. And I've, of course, played 5-color Domain Zoo. Managed to top 8, which is nice. Managed to bag myself a lovely Modern Horizons 2 box. I went with my team, or quite a few guys from my team, Team Templar. Had an absolutely great time. So of all obviously the top 8 was great, but to be honest, the most enjoyable thing that I always remember from Magic events is just hanging out with friends. It was really nice to be back into paper Magic, going to tournaments with friends, hanging out. A road trip for a couple of hours is just so much better when you're with your friends. So yeah, it was a really great time. Thanks for Axion and Francois, of course, for holding the event and the team. The events always run really smoothly, so if you live in the UK, I always recommend Axion events. They are always fantastic. So what I'm going to do in this video is, first of all, I'm going to go over the metagame that I expected. Modern is quite a broad metagame, so I will just explain what I was expecting, that kind of stuff. Then I'll go through the main deck, any choices that I made, any conscious decisions to like try and edge against anything, then the sideboard, and then at the end I'll go over any deck changes. So first of all, let's go into the metagame. So the metagame I was expecting was pretty much, obviously a wide open field. There is loads of different decks in Modern that you can play against. I think probably the top decks at the moment is going to be Creativity, Rhinos, some sort of control deck with Wrenn and 6 and Teferis. And then there's going to be the mirror, because obviously I'm going to be playing 5-color Zoo. That's pretty much all I play in Modern at the moment. Have been for about 6 months, something like that. Yeah, so I'd probably be saying Domain Zoo is one of the best decks in the format also. But there's also like a bunch of other decks. So you've got Amulet, which the Amulet players tend to just stick with their deck. You've got Living End if people want to play that instead of Rhinos. There's just a huge metagame. The one thing that I would say in the UK is there is just very little Hammer Time decks. I don't know why. You see it online everywhere, and you see it in like top 8 results and everything, but in my experience in the UK, it's just non-existent. So you'll notice in my deck choice, in my sideboard and everything like that, I basically just rule out Hammer Time because I just never see it. So basically I wanted my deck to be really good against Creativity and Rhinos because I think those are the best 2 decks in the format, and that will reflect on some various flex slots in my deck. So let's go straight into the actual deck list itself. So the deck has the staple 20 creatures of Ragavan, Wild Nacatl, Scion of Draco, Karvu, and the Brawler. And then the non-creature spells, I think the staples are 4 Bolts, 4 Stubborn Denials, 4 Tribal Flames, and 4 Leyline Binding. I think that's pretty standard at this point. The flex slots, I think, are the 2 Ramans, which I've been playing, and the 1 Teferi. So in these slots, a lot of people are playing a Dromoka's Command, which I think is a really good option. And there's various different things. Some people play 3 Teferi, some people play none. Some people play Dromoka's Command, some people cut one of these for an extra land and play 22 land. I personally think that Remand is absolutely fantastic in the deck. It's really good against all the Cascade decks because you can main deck, answer a suspend card, and it just bounces to their hand. So it's almost like countering it because you're going to kill them before they can resolve it next time anyway. But it also draws you a card. So you could run some sort of counter spell in that slot, like a Mana Leak or just something along those lines. But I think that Reminder is just really good because it gives you a card back. So you slow your opponent down enough, and then you will, I don't know, you'll find a Bolt or a Tribal Flames or something to just close the game out. So I think Reminder is perfect. I'm running 1 Teferi in the main deck. The reason that I did that was because I think the Cascade is just really powerful, and I don't think it's a great matchup for this deck. I don't think it's particularly unfavored post-sideboard, but game 1 especially, it's pretty rough. And I think you play the Dromoka's Command if you're expecting a lot of burn and a lot of blue-red. I think the deck has a fantastic matchup against blue-red anyway, so I don't really care to play the Dromoka's Command for that matchup. And I think burn is not very well suited at the moment, so I wasn't expecting to see that, assuming that I was doing well anyway, because I expect if I'm playing on point, then I should be on the top tables, and I don't think there's going to be many burn players because it's just not a meta game where I think Burn is going to excel. So I wasn't too worried about Burn. The Teferi was basically just an attempt to main deck answer to Rhinos. So that is the main deck. So in the sideboard we have Jegantha as our companion. That is going to look very, very out of place in the sideboard because we are running 4 Force of Vigor and 3 Force of Vigor and 4 Force of Negation. So why would you run a Jegantha as your companion and then sideboard into cards that don't let you have your companion? So I think for game 1 and in a lot of matchups where you don't use these double-costed spells, Jegantha is just incredibly powerful to have in the deck. I think that even if you only get to have Jegantha as your companion 50% of the time, it's still well worth the sideboard slot because it's just an incredibly powerful option to just get a 5/5 from nowhere. So if your opponent like scams you down and you've got no cards in hand, being able to get a Jegantha, it's just bonkers. So I think that you should be playing Jegantha even if you're boarding cards in that stop Jegantha being your companion, at least in this deck. So yeah, really like Jegantha. Even if I'm going to lose out on game 2 and 3 sometimes, Jegantha, I still think it's worth it for game 1. And again, some matchups you'll keep it for game 2 and 3. We're playing 2 Veil of Summer. The reason that we're playing this is because our matchup against all the Cascade decks and the Creativity decks means that we want to be able to answer their threat, which is going to be either the Rhinos or Creativity, the spell itself. But we also need to be able to protect it. So we're running 4 Force of Negation and 2 Flusterstorm and a Test of Talents. So we can intercept our opponent's combo pretty easily with that amount of counter spells, and also we've got 2 Teferi and the main deck Teferi and the full Stubborn Denial and the 2 main deck Remand. So there's counter spells in the deck, or ways to turn off Cascade, or ways to stop your opponent from Creativity. So the Veil of Summer is basically just so that you can counter spell with protection. I think that's really, really important because they are going to be playing their own forces. They are going to be playing Flusterstorms and stuff like that back at you so that they can protect their combo. And Veil of Summer is just really good protection, as is Teferi. So the sideboard is pretty much really heavily skewed to beat Creativity and Rhinos, and we've pretty much given up on most other decks. The reason for that is I just don't think we need to sideboard that much. If you're against a mid-range deck, you can probably kill them quicker than they can answer your threats, particularly with Stubborn Denial main deck. It's just very, very hard for people to answer you. So I don't think you actually need to sideboard that much in most games. The games that you do need to sideboard, however, you really do need to sideboard. So we're running 3 Force of Vigor. This is just my choice of enchantment hate. I hate that the deck has all these 2-drops, but sometimes you need to answer your opponent's threats at the same time. So if I'm against an Amulet player and I have my turn 2 and they've got an Amulet in play, I need to kill that Amulet straight away, but I also need to play a threat, otherwise I've not progressed my board state. So Force of Vigor is basically just there to allow you to out-tempo your opponent by presenting a threat and still answering any sort of artifacts or enchantments that you need to answer. It also answers Blood Moon without having to fetch a basic, which is really, really nice. Other than that, I think the Test of Talents is really, really good in the deck as well. The reason that you want to play this is because if you hit a Creativity or a Living End or a what's it called? The Footfall. I can't remember what it's called. The Rhino spell. If you hit one of those, you probably win the game. I think every time I've resolved Test of Talent, I've beat the opponent, which is absolutely crazy. So I did manage to do it in the event where I played against a Living End opponent and I Test of Talent's Living End, and after like one turn of them trying to figure out what was going on, they just conceded because without that card, their deck is pretty worthless and you can kill them. So it's just a really easy way to close out the game. If your opponent doesn't counter this, they lose the game on the spot, which is just crazy. And then Flusterstorm is just the best answer for Rhinos and any Cascade deck, especially on turn 3. If you're on the play, you can go play a 2-drop, and then next turn you can play another 2-drop and keep up Flusterstorm, or you can just play like a 1-drop on turn 3 and keep up Flusterstorm and Veil of Summer, or Test of Talents and Flusterstorm, or whatever combination of those 3 mana spells you want to use. But I think the deck is really, really good post-board against all of these combo decks, your main deck threats are so aggressive that you only really need to throw your opponent off for 1 or 2 turns, and they're not going to have a chance to catch up because they'll already be dead. So I think Force of Negation and Force of Vigor, absolute no-brainers in the deck, and I think Flusterstorm is probably the best option against Team of Rhinos, 5-color Rhinos, and Creativity. If there's any changes I would make, first of all, take into consideration that this sideboard completely ignores any graveyard hate, and it also completely ignores Hammer Time. So the reason that I play Force of Vigor over Hinjitsu, who consumes all, which destroys all non-land permanents of 1 CMC or less, is because you just don't see Hammer Time in the UK. I've been to quite a few events since COVID, and I think I've seen 1 Hammer Time player, and that's in like hundreds of players, like walking across the tables and seeing what people are playing. Like, I just never see Hammer, so I just don't even bother sideboarding for it anymore. So I would play Consumes All if I lived in America, where there was maybe more Hammer Time, or other countries, but in the UK I don't even consider it like a common deck, so I don't even bother trying to sideboard for it. Force of Vigor is good against the deck, but I would play Consumes All if I really wanted to beat that deck. I think other than that, the other card that you might be surprised that's not in the deck is Rest in Peace. The reason that I don't play Rest in Peace is because I don't think Dredge is particularly very good, and Living End you have the counter spells for. So yeah, that's about it. If there's any other deck that you might want Rest in Peace, the only thing I can think of is Blue-Red. But again, I've already said that's a fantastic matchup. I don't want to be spending sideboard slots on something like Rest in Peace because it doesn't shut the deck off, it just like makes it weaker, and it's already a good matchup. You don't want to draw in multiples. I don't know. You can play one, but I don't think it's hugely relevant. But Modern is a really, really open format. So although I am really hyper-focused on Creativity and Rhinos and that kind of thing and Control, I don't think that that's necessarily the way everyone should look at it, because I think I'm just very used to the metagame in the UK. But there are going to be people that turn up with random stuff that's suboptimal. They might just be because they like it, or it might just be because it's the only deck that they have access to, or whatever. So yeah, that is the deck. I really enjoyed it. If I was going to make any changes, I would like to see more Teferis in the list. The card is just really, really good against Rhinos, and that is probably the worst matchup in the format. If I thought there was going to be a bunch of burn players, I would be playing more Dromoka's commands. If I thought there was going to be more graveyard decks, I would play more Rest in Peace. But that's really about it. Strongly suggest playing 5-color Zoo. I think it is probably one of the top 3 decks in the format. I'm just incredibly biased because I love Zoo, but I think it really does stand up against the best decks. I did mulligan to 5 against a blue-white-red, I think it was, control deck, and still managed to beat them, even though we mulled to 5, and it didn't even feel close, which is crazy to think. 2 cards behind and still managed to crush them. Other than that, I think that Stubborn Denial is pretty much the best card in the deck, as ridiculous as that sounds. If you play like a threat and they don't answer it straight away, as soon as you untap with a Stubborn Denial, it basically just means that they need 2 2 removal spells, and they also need to spend the mana on that, whilst you only need 1 blue to stop it. It just feels really unfair when your opponent does like a 3 mana play to kill one of your guys, like a Prismatic Ending or Teferi to bounce one or something, and you just Stubborn Denial it. You're just so far ahead that you pretty much just win most of the time from that alone. So yeah, really enjoyed the deck. Really glad that I chose to play this list. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments section. I think the deck is really, really powerful, as I said, but more importantly, it's really fun. And I think you're much better off playing a deck you enjoy, because if you enjoy it, you're going to play it more, you're going to learn more, and you're going to learn how to play the deck better. Don't just play the best deck if you don't enjoy it, because 9 times out of 10, I think you're actually at a disadvantage, because you probably won't test very much. Yeah, thanks for watching, guys. If you want to see more content, please feel free to subscribe and like. And thanks again for Axion and Francois for hosting the event. Always a blast. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.